Bueno, y aquí tenemos con nosotros John Kern, otro firmante del Manifiesto Ágil. Y si quieren traducción simultánea, hay un botón que dice interpretación o traducción simultánea aquí al lado abajo de Zoom, donde pueden elegir el canal en español. Yo voy a cambiar a inglés y voy a hablar entonces en inglés con John. John, nice to have you here. Nice to see you again. How are you?
Estoy bien. Siempre.
Okay, so we can do the interview in Spanish then.
Oof. Maybe despacio. You spoke a little too fast.
Well, then let's try English and keep practicing because we have a time box. But yeah, first of all, thank you very much to take the time and to talk to us and to our audience here in Latam. I want to celebrate 20 years of Asia Manifesto. It was 2001 when it was signed. Now it's 2021. I think it was signed in February, if I'm not wrong. It's March now, but it's like 20 years. So we want to pay tribute. We want to celebrate. And we also want to hear a little bit about memories and the current worldview on Agile. So you obviously in the Agile world don't need an introduction. However, not everybody here in our audience is an expert. So would you maybe mind to tell us a little bit about what you were doing before the Agile Manifesto? So what was John doing before the Agile Manifesto?
Yeah, I think it will reveal a great deal about why some of the elements exist in the Agile Manifesto, because I began my career as an aerospace engineer, working with mostly the beginning. It was research and development for cruise missile jet engines.
Okay.
So later on, it was flight simulations, Top Gun type flat spins, like the F-14. Literally had that on a centrifuge. So, aerodynamic models and things like that. So I have a deep engineering background. In college and university, I only took a couple of computer courses that most people would probably laugh at, including myself. And I really stumbled during my time at the Naval Air Propulsion Center, where we were testing engines. I discovered, these people would come and they would fiddle around with stuff and something would appear on the screen. I'm like, huh, what's that? And they would talk about it. So I got exposed more to the software at that stage. So as an engineer, the software was a means to an end, not the end itself. So that was important. It was a tool. So as I kind of went through and discovered the power of software and I switched jobs to begin working with a defense contractor. So a private company that worked with the Defense Department. We mostly did Navy work on the naval side of things, naval tactical air, so Navy TAC air, fighter pilots and stuff like that. So there I began to be exposed to doing bids and proposals, heavyweight processes. In the U.S. government, there was if any of you have experienced working with maybe your own military or your own governments, there was a military standard 2167 big thick process document for how to do software. All the laborious, massive, giant documents you could create, huge things that made my head explode. So as a taxpayer, I'm like, let's work together, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. Let's figure out a better way to use our money than creating unnecessary documentation. So that was really when I began to build a kind of a lightweight approach to doing software, because the joke was you wanted plus or minus 5% accuracy on an estimate for something that's research and development that's going to take a year. So it really led me to just get a little more honest about what can we really do, and learn that you can build trust in a relationship with the customer, work within the confines, but maybe not necessarily do every little thing that makes no sense. So that's really what started the background of being an engineer, having to work on Defense Department stuff, being exposed to heavyweight process. So, without being able to see the 400 some people in the audience, I'm going to guess there are a lot of young folks who only know Agile. So back then, I also struck up a friendship with Peter Code. Peter Code is the more famous. He's I helped him co-author some books, but he was really my Agile, or I would say my object-oriented guru. So we worked together. We did feature-driven development. We founded TogetherSoft together with some other people. So he actually got the email from Bob Martin, who you just spoke with, right? Bob didn't know me from Adam. So Peter Code got the email because Peter Code was famous. I'm not famous. And Peter said, "Oh, John, this is right up your alley. Why don't you go represent?" So that's how I ended up in Snowbird. And as you can tell by probably if you look at those 4 bullets, how many of them certainly resonated with my Defense Department heavyweight, right? So that's what we were combating at the time. At the time, heavyweight process, rational unified process, big, huge, prescriptive techniques for doing software were what we were fighting as a bunch of smaller. Initially, I think it was dubbed the lightweight methodologists, contrasting with heavyweight. So that's really the kind of the background and what led me and what shaped my thinkings, along the way to Snowbird was that kind of background.
So you at the end, like you was forwarded the email by your colleague. That's how
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was something like that. Yeah.
Were you anything like the email? Did you get anything else before, like any other involvement with the organization itself, or you get the email and then you confirmed and then you just went there?
Oh no, it's basically we did some work up front. So we had a handful of calls about it, some kind of scope, even deciding, do you want to go to an island in the Caribbean, or do you want to go to ski? And I'm like, oh, I like skiing. So we had conversations ahead of time, and kind of got, the cool thing is, I'm sure Bob mentioned how kind of coincidentally, he had been at a conference not too much before him sending out the email. And I think Alistair was also thinking of something similar. So there were some coincidental things going on at the time. And so, yeah, we basically, that was my first exposure to a wiki, because Ward Cunningham was on the, was in the group. So I was like, oh, this is cool. This is way better than the way that I've tried to do shared documents way back then, 20 years ago, right? So yeah, it was a little bit of setup. Then we decided on a location and a date, and we showed up.
And by the time you get there, when you met in Snowbird, did you have the feeling that will become something special, or just another conference?
Yeah, just a cool opportunity to drink some beer and ski and talk to really smart people. So no, there was, I don't think anybody could have guessed that we'd impact millions of people and it would still be relevant 20 years later. My recollection was number one, I like to say if this translates, we left our ego at the door. There were a lot of big egos in that room, but they were managed. So I remember in the beginning, we shared about each other's practice. Like I never heard of Scrum, I never heard of DSDM. I didn't know about adaptive or crystal methodology, and people may have never heard of feature-driven development. Most people heard of XP, but there was a big contingent of XP in the room. So it was an opportunity in the beginning to kind of share, because what we were looking for is what's different, what do we have in common as lightweight methodologists? What do we have in common that might serve as something useful? Like, what are we all doing that's different than the heavyweight? What do we all value? And so I remember Martin Fowler led one exercise or where we wrote things on a index card and put it in the middle of the room and then reveal them, stuff like that. And I know, I think I put the word honesty on the card because, the classic old school style of, thinking you're making progress by doing 9 months of use cases and you've got nothing to show. One of the things that at TogetherSoft with Peter Code, one of our mantras was frequent, tangible, working results. Right? That's what counts. Is I got something I can show you, or you can run it. You can't run use cases. You can't run a design document. I mean, I love design. I'm a big document nut. I love process, but at some point you have to show something real. So, we basically exchanged ideas like that, I think, and just started to understand where people's heads were at about their methodologies, their approaches, and then try to find what's common. And I think that one of the good things was there's a bunch of us object modelers in the room who are really good at looking across instances of things and abstracting out the essence of ideas and the abstractions. So, it was probably biased with a bunch of modelers in the room.
Well, you obviously did impact a lot of people. So, what do you think about the importance of the Agile Manifesto today?
Yeah, I must say one of the most humbling aspects of the phenomenon that is the Agile Manifesto is how it's meaningfully impacted people's lives. It feels odd to have people want their picture taken with you, or they come up and thank you. You can't, it's amazing what it's almost like we unleashed freedom for millions of developers toiling away, give them hope. And it's really, I think, the most positive aspect is how many lives it touched. And it was almost an afterthought, if I recall, that Ward said, hey, maybe I'll throw it on a web page. Yeah, okay, whatever. Right? I don't think, oh yeah, we got to do that. We got to, got to market it. I don't think anybody was that hardcore about it, but rather let it out there. And pretty soon it took off. Everybody with a business would love to, have monetized that kind of a growth curve. Well, actually some people did. But yeah, I think that's that kind of impact is still there. But there are also, like like any modern, trend, or probably not even modern, probably every trend over the course of mankind, where things can be abused, things can be misinterpreted. To me, Agile is simple but not easy. Agile is very personal. Yeah, you can talk about transforming an organization, but it starts with people, and it starts with each individual. I cannot come into an organization and wave some magic wand and poof, people, there's no 2-day course that everybody can go to that suddenly the organization's Agile, because it's up here, and it's even in the heart. So that's probably the harder aspect is, it would be easy if it weren't for all the people, but the people are really probably the hardest aspect to help get at what Agile means and how to be Agile, not just follow some rote process that's Agile, because that's, it's just a way to start, but it's not a way to continue.
Okay, so thanks a lot. That's certainly a very interesting observation, because there are many people that are trying to attack that just by some technique. And now, in preparation for this interview, we ask lots of people what they ask to the signatories of the manifesto, and the number one question is this one: would you change anything today?
Let's see, how many different languages do I need to say no in? No, and of course that's a real popular question, and my answer is always immediately no. But with a little context, as I mentioned, I tried to reveal a little bit about my history, what we were facing 20 years ago in heavyweight process, dominance in the marketplace by rational, waterfall being, basically dictated in many large organizations, even though waterfall was never meant to be the way it was implemented. And I could even read RUP and configure RUP to do it the way I want to do lightweight development, right? But the actual implementations were heavyweight. So we were solving the problem of 20 years ago, which really was that narrow. Like, how do we break through this big, gorilla, like the proverbial 900-pound gorilla in the room with marketing and everything like that? How do we try to get a voice that there's other ways that you can also succeed at doing software development? And if you notice closely at the very top of the manifesto, you can see like 2 things that I think are really important to embody as a member of a team, or maybe even society. Probably it's good, period, is humility and curiosity. Seek to understand, be a little more humble that your ideas might not just be the only ones out there. And so even the way we worded we are uncovering, so we didn't even say like past tense. We did not even say we uncovered, this is the way, here it is, we figured it out. No, it's like, oh, wow. Well, we were meeting here, drinking beer and skiing and walking and hiking, what other people were doing. Yeah, you know what, we're kind of uncovering some cool things. And here's some, 4 main bullets about the things we uncovered, that we were uncovering. So we didn't even, we acted very humble there, in that we didn't say this is the end. It's just, this is something, snapshot in time, given the reasons we were there. And even we value this over that, the left versus right. And even that ambiguity is because context matters. You have to use your brain to figure out that where along the spectrum you might need to do certain aspects of a process to meet, certainly a very simple website for, some really simple things is a lot different than something that's going to take personal information or credit cards or, national security secrets, right? So one size doesn't fit all. And the same thing in the, the left-hand side over the right-hand side. That was also a recognition that we're not going to tell you how to run your projects and how to do it. We're going to give you a range that you need to use your brain and figure that out. So I think that's important to underscore, that it was a certain point in time for a certain reason, heavyweight, and it's got, I think, to the gist of what software development is. So I don't think any of those bullets or even the principles are wrong, and we'll leave it to someone else. I mean, I do like Josh Karefsky and Industrial Logic, Modern Agile. Alistair's got the heart of Agile. There are other facets that have appeared, and I think somebody else can meet, figure out whatever they want to do, and create some manifesto for the next 20 years, but leave ours alone.
Great. So
because it's yours now, right? It's not, we cast it off into the public. It's floating around the world, and it is what it is.
So last, but also very common question that we get: how can you become a more agile company? Like, at the end, the question ends up being the question like, okay, how do you implement it? How do you become more agile?
That's a good one. It's not easy. So what I now work for Adaptivist, and shockingly, I as long as I've been using Jira and Confluence, since like 15 years or whatever, Adaptivist is, lo and behold, probably the biggest Atlassian partner, global partner by any kind of reasonable measure, and have crazy tools that plug into Jira. So why would I work for such a company? Well, it's because they want to push not only for our customers into exactly answering that question. How do we help customers move to become more agile? And even internally, how can they wanted it internally as well. So we actually use the same techniques that we use with customers on ourselves to become more agile. And really, one of the primary reasons that I took the job was that mandate. And there was a fellow named John Turley that works there, who is really big on the people and culture side, and began to teach me a lot of things about, we do things like organizational network analysis. We look at the people and culture first to try to get an assessment about where's the motivational orientation. So we really front load the agile transformation, so to speak, with understanding where are you currently? What ways do the people on the teams make their meaning? Where are they in terms of command and control or autonomy, supportive? So that's our starting point. And then oftentimes with specific teams, we call them agile mentoring workshops. It's a dopey name, but I like mentoring more than training, because training is fine for certain things, but mentoring is, you're on the ground, you're working in the real, in your real work. So we often help teams by doing cross-functional value stream type workshops to see, how do you work today, including all the bad things, that don't work. And then think about how can we ideate and come up with rainbows and unicorn type new way of working to help solve. And it's pretty impactful, because a lot of times it's a little sad to say, but frequently that's the first time people worked in that kind of cross-functional way, and folks learn like, oh, I had no idea you did stuff like that, right? So it's really impactful, and it helps the team understand the value of being cross-functional, understanding what does value mean to your organization, and being able to chart a brand new course and get people engaged and motivated, and then help push that forward with with various means. So that's how we do it now. That's how we help move team by team an organization. But it's not easy, that's for sure.
Well, John, then I guess we're getting here at the end of our time box. Thank you very much for being with us.